Okay, so I went in and added the documentation. You always want to keep up on that. Don't let that get behind you because it could be an overwhelming task if you put it off to the end. If you do it along the way, it's only a line or two at a time. And obviously, when I put this together, I was thinking about booleans, typing in 0 and 1. And then when typing up the documentation, I realized I should actually be returning a boolean, return false or true, and that way I don't have to do a comparison in an if statement. We can just say if that element of the dictionary, and then it's going to have true or false in it, not necessarily a 0 or 1, so that way we don't have to actually do a comparison. So I'll switch all those to well, the same thing. Is false is 0 and true is 1 in Python, so the same thing, it's just a special case of it. And add that documentation in, and hopefully you noticed that we ask for this keyboard button, but that's a very specific thing to the Panda 3D, so we do need to import that. So before we're ready to give it a test, we have to make sure and import that. From Panda 3D .core import all, which there's code analysis in this IDE, so it doesn't like to import everything. It wants it to be specific, but generally it's considered not great form to do that. So added that in, and I haven't been documenting the getters or setters. That's kind of, seems like it's kind of obvious what those are doing. And yeah, so we'll create an instance of it, pass in whatever controls we want to use, and the default is just the ASDW. And then we have this check key method that will check those controls we passed in to see which ones are being used. So we're ready to give this a test now. So if we come over to test 3D, this thing that we copied, and comment this out. And there is something special we have to do in order to make Panda 3D run in an IDE. We'll get to that here in just a second. We have to run it a special way the first time, and after that it'll be okay. So we created our 3D instance. Oh, whoops. And well, at this point it's not going to know what the control 3D is, so we better import that. So from game objects, import everything. I could import just the one, but I'll just go ahead and do that import all, and then there's code cleanup suggestions to deal with that later. And now that we have that, we can just ask for it. So self.control of that object, and we can call the check key method. And when this runs, the show base will be running. So at that point, we will have a mouse watcher. So we can call base.mouse watcher node and pass that in to watch for the keys. And then that's going to return a dictionary. So I'll put that in something called direction. Whoops. So now it's called direction. So direction is, we'll get that back and put it in something called direction. And then we just need to check those directions. So if direction, the left attribute of the direction is true, then what do we want to happen? Left is, well, we just copy from here. Our turn gets the angular speed. So in this case, this one's not really going to be shorter, but it's reusable. We'll be able to use that object over and over and over again anytime we need those. And then the key presses are going to be detected at the speed of the CPU's running and processed at the speed the game engine's running. And the CPU is going to be running a whole lot faster than 60 frames per second. So we'll be able to grab all the key presses. So we can do it with an if instead of an elif, and we can check them all instead of just one at a time. So left, down, right, and up are the options we have in our keys so far. And let's see, if it's right, we're going to turn negative angular speed, so I can just add the negative sign in here. And forward, that was the up key, so I'll just copy and paste this in here. And backward is the down key, so I'll just copy and paste this in here. Oh, the right should be negative angular speed. I put that negative sign in the wrong spot. So now we should be able to give this a test run, but we do have to do something special to get Panda 3D to run in an IDE, the very first time at least. And it gets into the internal workings of how the engine's put together, but the very first time it will create a reference in the operating system and then run from that. So the first time we run it from the IDE, we actually need to come up here to run and go to configure per file and configure it to work in an external terminal, in an external system terminal. After that, it should work. After we run it once that way, if it actually opens the command prompt and runs from there instead of from inside our IDE, it'll add that reference and send the operating system that reference, and it'll know what it's talking about. And after that, we can run in a local console, and if we execute it in our just main console, anything that pops up a GUI or pops up a window, it'll pop up behind. So we want to, after running it once, we want to come back and set this to execute in a dedicated console. But the very first time, we need to execute in an external system terminal, running in command prompt the very first time. Uh-oh. Control object has no attribute get up. So line 121 in game objects. Well, I probably shouldn't close that because I don't think that was referring to line 121 here. So let me find that error and oh, I just misread the message. It wasn't 121, it was 221, and get up method had a lowercase e in it, so save that. Come back over here and give this another try. And that was a configuration, so it's going to run in command prompt. So it could just leave it here to run each time. So it opened up our character, and if I push the button, so now it's getting those controls from that reusable control object, so we'll be able to use that in any of our games. So that's the reusable object, the only reusable object I'm actually going to add in here. So we're almost ready to add this stuff to our game writer object. But one of the big ones is we want to customize things. Well, since that works, I can take this out and take out this code that's commented out, make this a little shorter. And so like this, our actor object, we have the animation controls and this move and choose. Those could all be consolidated into a custom object, which is what an add script function would do in our interface eventually. So might as well go ahead and run through that logic, and that way I have an example of that to add to the game writer and interface methods when working on that part. So let's see where we're at, 9:38. So in the next video, I'll go ahead and move this into an object for now, but it's not going to be a keepable object. I'm just going to take all these parts we have, an actor, like pass an actor in, and then pass all those, and then set up fields for the booleans and a move and animate method, and do a custom object, and that way when we're over there adding things to our game writer and interface methods, we can go ahead and put in the add script method, and we'll have an example of that. Because the first thing we want to do is make sure that we can recreate this game at basically the click of a button. So I will see you in the next video for that. Which, yeah, so this is going to be the only object I keep around. But I'm going to go ahead and do a custom object. That way we have one to refer to get that method working. And coming up very soon. So I'll see you in the next video to go over the logic for customizing an object once we know it's going to work for our game.